I was not a good student. I was a shy, introvert kid. I was a loser. I was a failure in exams. And my parents constantly chided me, compared, well, why Apollo 13 failed or why Columbia accident happened. I hosted a conference called the International Congress on Sound and Vibration. 600 people came from 60 countries. I gave them a dinner party right under a Apollo Saturn V rocket. And then next week or so, I got laid off. I went through a quadruple bypass, and that happened in 2009 when we were launching Space Shuttle. You need to go like 7 levels of approvals and 7 levels
Okay.
of badging. Otherwise, you'll be shot at sight. If you try to sneak in,
Oh,
you'll be shot at sight.
dear friends, welcome to the Success Frequency Podcast. The guest for today's podcast is Dr. Ravi Margasahayam, the Global Ambassador of NASA. But before I tell you about the guest, let me answer a question which might probably be playing on your mind, and that is, what is success frequency? Now, we all vibrate at a certain emotional frequency. For example, when people face failure, they experience fear, guilt, shame, anger, and these emotions have a frequency of less than 150 hertz. While this is natural, the problem arises when people stay in that frequency for too long. Remaining in a low frequency means you attract situations and people vibrating at similar frequency, thereby adding more misery to your life. Now, coming back to our guest for today, Dr. Ravi Margasahayam has launched more than 700 human beings, including our very own Kalpana Chawla, into space. He was conferred with the title of Astronaut Maker by none other than late Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, former Honorable President of India. Dr. Ravi is a vibration engineer at NASA, and if a space shuttle has to take off, his sign off is mandatory. This podcast will be nothing short of a roller coaster ride. Whether you are an entrepreneur, professional, parent, or student, you will walk away with something valuable in your life. It is my honor to invite Dr. Ravi Margasahayam to this podcast. So, Dr. Ravi, welcome to this podcast. And I want to honestly tell you that I envy that jacket. And someday I'm going to steal it from you.
It's
So,
traveled more miles than you and me, so I can't give it to anybody. No, I'm teasing you. Yeah,
thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you for inviting me. And it's a great pleasure to be here on the podcast. And, there are many things as we go along, we'll talk, but taking their lives. And it's about the failures, and failures make people take drastic actions. And that's what I want to avoid. If I can save one life, that will be great for me. My job would have been done on the earth, so. But thank you for inviting me in. Yes, I'm a NASA Global Ambassador, but I don't work for NASA. I'm retired, so just want people to know that. But I still represent NASA as a public speaker around the globe. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, so, yeah. Dr. Ravi, to begin with, what was the early calling for you, the trigger in life? I remember when we met in Mumbai, you mentioned about the movie Sangam.
It's a great story, and I guess I want to impress upon people that as we go in life, we don't know really what we want to do. And I was born in Mumbai, and as soon as I was a 1 month old baby, my mother took me to Burma, Myanmar now it's called, and we were living in the jungles of Burma. 5 years there, 2 years back to Mumbai, and then by 1960s I was in Kabul for 5 more years. So this is
Oh.
a very fascinating time for me because my whole world that time was the Indian subcontinent, and I from Kabul I came to Mumbai to do some educational studies and other things. And then I saw the movie Sangam. That was the first color movie. I remember that
Oh.
1964. I was 10 years old, and
Yeah, yeah.
how 10-year-olds how even 10-year-olds can love people, I guess. So I fell in love with the heroine Vajanti Mala. And as most people know, the story is about two boys and a girl. One boy is a pilot. Long story short, he goes to the war, dies. But in Bollywood, nobody dies. He comes back and says, "Hey, buddy, I want my girlfriend back," because before he went, he gave it to his best friend, and best friend said, "Okay, now it's time to give back." And then He marries her, takes her on a honeymoon to London, Paris, Switzerland. At that time, my whole world was Indian subcontinent. And that really struck me that if I become a pilot, I can marry a beautiful girl and go around the world. So, and that was just a simple dream, which is, I call it my trigger, my calling, because I was fascinated with planes, because from day one, 1 month old baby, I was flying in planes. Yes, I didn't know what a plane was, but 5 years later, I could understand what a plane was. I was always around the airports because we were going in and out all the time. So that fascinated me, flying more than Earth. I wanted to see what's up there, and
Hmm.
so that was the beauty about my journey, and that was my calling, which really completely changed it. Because sometimes, they say God proposes, man proposes, God
God
disposes.
dispose.
But in reality, in my case, same thing happened. Man proposes, God disposes, but he disposed for the better. And we'll go along talking about how I became a rocket scientist instead of just a pilot.
So, talking about the movie, eventually, did you find the Vaijanti Mala of your life?
I did find my Vaijanti Mala. I married a most beautiful girl from India. I'm so proud of her. We are married 43 years. And I even went around the world, about 60 to 80 countries, 7 continents, more than 300 universities. And I've done it all, but I never became a pilot. Now I can afford a pilot and buy a plane and fly. I don't want to do it because that calling has gone, because I got into a better, higher orbit.
Yeah, in fact, you have gone beyond Earth. You're into space now. Yeah, you're sending people to space. So, you've done much more than that. So, Dr. Ravi, how was your schooling days? How good were you at studies? And the reason I'm asking you this is because nowadays there are a lot of competition between students, which is good if it is healthy. But I've seen students who score 75, 80, 90% also, but who are so depressed and anxious that I've heard students committing suicide because they scored less or they could not get into a college which they desired and stuff like that. And I just feel that maybe your story can inspire a lot of people to just not give up because they scored less or they could not get into a college they wanted. So if you can just elaborate on your schooling days, it might help.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, my childhood was very simple. We were not rich, I would say. We were sort of, middle class or less. And those days, my dad made $120, $25 a month in Kabul. He worked for the American embassy. So this
Ah,
is 1960s I'm talking about. So when I went to my dad and said, "Hey, I want money for my flying lessons," he said, "I'm making $125." And then my mom said, "Look, you fly, you die." So it was not very encouraging for me, but the dream was alive. But what it is I was not a good student. I was a shy, introvert kid. I was a loser. I was a failure in exams. And my parents constantly chided me, compared. There was a big comparison culture. Oh, look at that guy, Dinesh. Look at that other guy, Papia. They're, they're like getting 90%, getting first ranks. And, what are you doing? But
right.
one thing I remember, when I got my SSLC results, my dad and me went all the way to Matunga in Mumbai. I'm sure people know about it.
Yeah.
There was a school, Kannada school, NKS High School, and we got the results, and I got 50% out of 100.
Okay.
So yeah, so the whole time from Vadala to Matunga train station, he never talked to me.
Okay.
and
I got it.
and after that, he flew away to Kabul, and we had like a lot of sort of tension between us because of my poor grades, because he thought I was a nobody then.
Hmm.
My mom beat me up, but again, come first year science, inter science, I studied in Mumbai. I didn't do well at all. Maybe I don't want to blame anybody. Like I think there were no mentors, in my opinion. Nobody to guide. We didn't have books. We didn't have
No
movies. We
self
didn't have
books.
anything. We
Yeah.
didn't have elders. My parents were not there too. My parents were in Muscat. Burma, or Kabul and other places. They were not
Afghanistan.
in town. I used to stay with my uncle and aunt. So that gives you different kind of environment you bring up, or you're brought up. So maybe I was not pushy, dynamic, extrovert.
Aggressive.
I was a failure. And we can talk about the biggest failure in my life in 1970 if you want.
Yeah, yeah, please
Do
go
you want
ahead.
to continue? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So
please.
that time I took the exam, inter science exam, and again I got 35 out of 100, and that really completely shut my whole uh, 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 what do you call dreams of becoming a pilot or even studying further in engineering or whatever. My dad was an engineer, civil engineer, so I wanted to be an engineer. I was not good enough for a doctor. So I think by 1970, early 70, as Apollo 13 happened, which we'll talk a little bit later when you're ready. At the same time, I was taking my exams, and these were like one major crisis in space and
Hmm.
the other crisis on Earth when I literally didn't do well, and my mom and dad were so frustrated that my dad abandoned me sort of, and my mom said, okay, she was reading a newspaper in Times of India, and suddenly she saw some articles about RV College of Engineering in Bangalore, and that opened up doors to Bangalore. So to tell you the truth, my first 22 years of my life, I would say they were like a uh, I don't even want to call it as a failure. It was a total failure.
Now, continuing on this discussion, Dr. Ravi, I remember when you came to India last December, and when we were talking at L&T or Godrej, you had mentioned about something called as successful failures. I mean, in the speech you mentioned that there is nothing called as failures, there are only successful failures. If you can elaborate on that, that would really help.
Yeah, sure. That's a very good concept. I mean, it's not my word, but I'm using it in the context of my journey and NASA's journey.
Really?
By the by, NASA is like I was born in '53. NASA was born in '58, so it's a younger brother to me. So I can beat him up. uh, so what happened was, you have a coin, and people say there's a heads and a tails. You play it for cricket, you
Right.
toss the coin. But I say there are three sides to a coin, not two sides. One side is success, while the other side is failure, the flat sides. And the circumference or the rim is called the successful failure. Why? Because in life, there's no failure, actually. We are trying to do many things. Like if you take uh, 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 Thomas Alva Edison, he broke his bulb so many times, and then even
Right.
his buddy ran away, and said, Thomas, you're going to kill me, So in the end, he found the bulb. So, what it is it's part of that process where we grow from learning from our mistakes. And the most important thing I want people to remember is you not only learn from your own mistakes, but the mistakes of others, It's like it gives you a head start in a marathon. So if Ravi Nair learns from my mistakes and his own mistakes, then Ravi Nair gets to go to a 10-mile start in a marathon, whereas Ravi Margasahayam gets at a zero line. So how can I beat Ravi Nair? Impossible, right? So
Impossible.
you get ahead by 10 miles. So successful failure is the bridge we cross, And why we call it successful failure is because good example would be Apollo 13. And you remember I was telling you about my exam I was taking on Earth, and we had three men stuck. So this is a
Right.
profound statement I want to. So this stream, the oxygen tank exploded near the moon, 50 miles from the moon. Now these men were stuck in the space, and there's
Okay.
no way to send NASA to send somebody to pick them up. So it was a great admiration, working hard, coming together. 1 million people around the world were working diligently trying to save these people because they were running out of oxygen, food, good air, all kinds of things, heat,
Hmm.
temperature, computer, the navigation, everything. And Gene Kranz, one of the directors, or launch directors at LCC, or Mission Control in Houston, he said, so these three men were beyond the reach, physical reach of humankind, but not beyond the reach of human intelligence, imagination, and ingenuity. With those profound words, he made the entire 1 million people around the world work together in harmony and get the job done. So
Wow.
we got the people back. So successful failure, success is, well, failure first was a plan A, meaning our job was to land on the moon, just like Apollo 11, few launches ago, but we didn't. So that was a failure. But now we instituted Plan B immediately, and that said that, okay, let's bring them back. So we brought them back safely. I mean, that is one of the greatest achievements of mankind, what
Wow.
mankind has the power
Power.
to do. So that's the real tenacity of mankind, what he can do.
You can
And
do.
humankind can do almost anything, uh, except he doesn't want to give up.
Dr. Ravi, if I may interrupt, while we're talking about failures, I had something to add here, which I normally tell in my workshops, and that is, as human beings, we never fail. I don't know, let me know if you agree with me or not. As human beings, we never fail. What fails is our actions. For example, let's suppose somebody had a bad relationship, he failed in relationship, he or she. Normally, we find here people saying things like, "Oh, I was not a good husband. I am not a good wife," or something like that. But if you think about it, as human beings, they have never failed. Their actions have failed. For example, if the husband said that he's going to come back early that day, take her out for dinner, and he didn't keep his promise because he was hanging out with some other friends, right? So his actions were failing consistently, because of which the relationship failed. So, as a human being, he is not a failure, but his actions failed. So, I don't know what's your take on this. I don't know if it made sense
It
to you.
resonates with me, and you're totally right about it. That's a good saying. Scientists study the world as is, but the engineers create the world that never was. So, really, all
Yeah.
the things we see in this earth are created by humans. So, it's a human error. So, what is the problem there is the root cause. So, there's two types of causes, why Apollo 13 failed or why Columbia accident happened, because there are two types of cause. One is called the proximate cause, the other one is called the root cause. Okay,
Hmm.
so proximate cause is the engineering problem, like your car breaks down. You know what the engine is, but Ravi Nair, he didn't lubricate his engine. So
Yeah.
whose mistake it is? It's not car's mistake. It's car is looking for lubrication, and Ravi Nair says, paisa nahi hai. I don't have money.
Or a
So,
delayed,
oh, I'm going to
whatever.
delay it. So same thing, you have to find the root cause. If you don't find the root cause, you're not going to go over that hump, cross that
Right.
bridge of success and failure. And my recommendation is sit back, review the problem, and if you don't find the root cause, Ravi, it will keep on happening again and again. It will repeat.
Got it. Got it.
So that's my mantra for you. Find the
Yeah.
root cause of the problem.
Now, that also reminds me about something very interesting you told me last time, and that was finding your own peak. Like you met some interesting gentleman who had climbed the Mount Everest.
Well, yeah, here you go. I mean, you're putting me on the spot here, but I'll tell you, uh, uh, I think the whole world knows that the tallest peak is called Mount Everest, and
Yeah.
on Earth, basically on Earth. So, and everybody wants to be the first. Don't you want Ravi to climb the mountain first, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, why not? Tenzing Norgay. Tenzing Norgay was the first one.
Oh yeah,
And
Tenzing
there's a
Norgay.
good story, and people forget they give credit to Edmund Hillary, but he didn't climb. I'll tell you why. Because Edmund Hillary had a camera, and
Hmm.
Tenzing didn't have a camera because those days we don't own camera. 1953,
Yeah.
okay, the
Okay.
year I was born. Then who's going to take the picture? Tenzing didn't know how to operate a camera. So Hillary said, "You go up the top, I'll take a picture." So who went first? Tenzing went first because
Ah,
his picture is there.
I got
There's
it.
no picture of Hillary on the mountain. So, Tenzing told me this, and by chance we were in Darjeeling and on a engineering tour, and I wanted to pick up some postcards with Tenzing and Hillary climbing Mount Everest. That was like 20 years ago in 53. And then I met them, a store manager, and he said, "Look, Ravi, there's no posters or pictures of both of them. I cannot give you a postcard." So then he said, "But come here. I want to tell you something. That guy sitting in the corner, he's Tenzing." I said, "No, you got to be kidding me because, everybody looks the same there for me." So we
Okay.
dragged him, came out, and yeah, he's Tenzing. And then one profound thing he told me that Ravi he said, he advised us many things, but one of the things he said is, "Look, Ravi, don't even think about climbing Mount Everest." I said, "Why? I may want to, try." He said, "No, no, no, no. I already climbed first, so I'm
Hmm.
the first." nobody, you'll never get a second chance to make a first good impression. So he said, I'm the first and you'll be second. But that's not the point. The point is not about climbing Mount Everest. Climbing your own peak, own
Peak.
defined peak. You can be a mountaineer. I would have never become a mountaineer because I have so many knee problems and all that. So it's not like, okay, I want to do what Tenzing did. No, you find your own path.
Own peak.
So
Very
he said,
nice.
you define your peak and climb it. And I'm like thinking, Mr. Tenzing, at that time, our educational background was not that great. I told you my whole world
Yeah.
was India, Burma, and Kabul.
Traveling.
I didn't know there were planets, but we slept on the terrace and saw sun and moon, and we didn't care about anybody else. We didn't have telescopes and stuff like that. So now I know with NASA that there's a mountain called Olympus Mons on Mars
Mhm.
that really is 3 times taller than Mount Everest. Now, can I climb it? No, I may never climb it. But my company NASA or my employer NASA is sent a helicopter on Mars to the and they're roaming around with a rover and a helicopter. I mean, this is 100 million miles away. What it says is that you find your own peak, you define your own peak. It doesn't have to be Mount Everest. It can be some other peak, and that's what Tenzing was alluding to. And he said, even if let's say Ravi Nair tries to climb Mount Everest, and he just goes to the base camp and then climbs halfway. I mean, even climbing halfway is great because more than 90% of the population, 99% of the world's population hasn't even
Would
gone to the base. When I came to NASA in America, we'll talk a little bit about that. I went to the top of NASA. I think I believe in that because Pamela Milroy, one of my astronaut mentors, she told me that Ravi, you're a greatest citizen of America and the world. So coming that from her, who is the number 2 person in the whole of NASA. It's an amazing statement. And
right.
they don't make that. And she reports directly to the President of the United States. She's a deputy administrator three
Yeah.
times to
We did
space.
speak about that.
So I think I made it to the top of NASA. Yes, maybe people don't know that. It's okay. I don't care. But I know what I've done and I climb my peak, and I want others to climb their peak. Why? Because, even if you go halfway, it's great.
So Dr. Ravi, I think the audience is going to find this very interesting, and that is to find your own peak, right? So many times, what happens is we hijack other people's goals in life. Like we see somebody achieved something, we say that, oh, let me also do that, right? So rather, what you said right now is so significant that it is very important to find your own peak, right, and achieve it. Okay. So thanks a lot for that. Thanks a lot for that. And another important thing about finding your own peak is when you find your own peak, you are very passionate about it, right? For example, like when it comes to coaching and doing researching a lot on psychology, I can spend 17 to 18 hours a day, right? Because I just love it, right? So that's one thing about finding your own peak. That means because you're so passionate about it that you can spend hours working on it. At the end of the day, instead of feeling tired, you feel more juvenated, more energetic, right? So that's one advantage of finding your own peak, right? So thanks a lot for that. I think the audience is really going to get something really worthy out of this conversation. So Dr. Ravi, let me just ask you one more question here. You mentioned about your struggles with studying, like you got 35% marks when you were in 10th standard, and then about 50% in your college, and then the struggle you faced to get an admission in a decent engineering college, and you went through all that, but I'm sure the journey from India to the US was also not so easy for you, considering those days, where colleges were so expensive. So how was your journey? What happened in the US? How did you start? I think that would be very interesting to know that.
As I continued my journey to in Bangalore for engineering between 70 to 75, I slowly became better and better because of the environment, because of my friends studying hard, making sure my parents were really interested in me, giving me a ticket to come to Muscat or Dubai or Abu Dhabi. That was my bait. It's like a
Ah,
carrot in front of the horse. So I think I don't know whether I told you, but in the last final year of like the fifth year in engineering in RV College in 75, I got the second rank at the whole Bangalore University. And I think there was some hope for me. So I had wiped out some of my old failures. And now I had come to a point where I could go through the successful failure. And at that time, my parents invited me to Muscat, and my parents were living there, and so I went there, and I had no plans to go anywhere in the world because I had never seen anything in the world.
Yep.
I didn't know where London was, Paris was. I mean, we had books and other things to study. That's about it. Really, we didn't crave for going there. I just wanted to be happy living with my mom and everybody. But then my parents decided that you should go on your own and make a mark on your own. Find your own path. And define your own peak.
Peak.
Climb that peak, summit that peak, and make somebody out of you. And he gave me like, okay, here is a couple of $100, and this is for you, and then another few $1,000 for education. He said, don't come back. So the next thing I know, I went to Germany. They didn't want me because I didn't know German. I didn't study
Yeah.
engineering in German. There
You
will be
did.
5 more years.
Oh,
Yeah. So my aunt in Chicago said, "Oh, why don't you come here and we'll get you in and we'll let you study masters and PhD in 5 years instead of doing your undergrad again." And
great.
so imagine that this is a very interesting point, turning point, I call it in my life. That uh, it's like I talk about Columbus and Magellan and so many people. They look for something and they get something totally
Something.
different. It's called the serendipity. The
Great.
journey is serendipity. I was looking just to become a pilot, but look how it turned. So there is such thing as I call it life's mirror. So concept. I just came up with this. So your mirror will reflect you 100%, right? If
Right.
Ravi was a 1 month old baby, it will reflect it. Or how about Ravi who is a 10-year-old guy, or Ravi is a 50-year-old guy? It will
Same.
reflect exactly as it is. Mirror doesn't lie, you
Right.
know.
Absolutely.
So, but in life's mirror, it lies. Why? Oh, it lies because there's another variable. Because the regular mirror, real mirror, is a static thing. Okay, life is
Right.
not static. Life is dynamic. And in dynamic, it's like you have a movie and you have songs and videos and everybody moving.
Yep.
So what I want to impress upon the audience is that my first 22 years, if my a real mirror reflected, then I would be a total failure. Really, I didn't do a
Right.
damn thing. I was nobody. I was a nobody. And from the next 22 years, the mirror wanted to reflect something different, but it said, no, I'm going to be a real mirror, and I'm going to reflect the same failures again and again. And that's where my intention or my dream came
Dream.
true, because I wanted to come to America and be somebody. Because my parents had already beaten me down so much, and it was good. I'm not negative against my parents,
Yeah.
but that was the culture those days.
Definitely.
Comparison culture, beat you up, get 80% marks, 90% marks, run, run, run. Yeah, I mean, doesn't mean anything because I was a very poor student, and when I came to America, the first day, you won't believe, Ravi, I had just taken TOEFL in Bangalore, and I didn't have GRE. I didn't even have admission. Okay, I was in
Right.
a tourist visa for 6 weeks, and my aunt somehow got me into IIT Chicago. The first day I sit in the class, in the front row on a big auditorium, 200 people, professor is talking something. I can hear him, but I don't even know what the heck he's talking about,
Okay.
because his English is totally different than mine.
Oh,
Even today,
yeah.
my English will be totally different than many people. I have not practiced American English. I don't even know what my English is. But interesting is that I changed myself, and then I had good mentors, university professors, and that's the beauty. I think my success in America in the next 22 years was completely changed because I held the bull by the horn and said,
Agreed.
okay, I'm going to change myself. I've decided to climb this mountain. This is my peak. It's not like Ravi's peak, Ravi Nair's peak. It's not Ravi
Yeah.
Nair's path. I'm going to make a mark on this world, make a mark on the society, and be somebody, and make sure I make India proud, my parents proud, and all that.
So, Dr. Ravi, I made a very interesting observation here that you have been in NASA for almost 40 years, spent most of your adulthood with Americans, but you still speak very simple English. Somehow I strongly believe that it has more to do with content.
Really coming to America opened my eyes. Really, your grades are important, but they're not important.
No.
American society and American employers, they care what you can do. They'll give you a job. Can you get the job done? That's all they care. You
Good.
can be a nobody. You can be a janitor, okay, and still say that if you can get the job done. In fact, in NASA alone, when I first joined in '88, I said I came to America in '75, so that's my 22 years in India or Indian subcontinent. Now
Okay.
my next 22 years, I just went to the top. Exponential growth. Why? Because not that I was intelligent, I was still the same guy. But what I had was that passion, the perseverance, and the planning, and all those aspects came together because I had good mentors, and I wanted to be somebody, and I wanted to prove it to myself, not to my parents.
Right.
They still thought I was a nobody. The world thought I was a nobody.
Nobody.
And I had to make a mark on the world. Okay,
In
so
fact,
to do that, I had to work hard and change my thinking and change my education, learn more, take any job, except like my first job as an aerospace engineer from IIT Chicago. I never went to IIT in India. I was not good enough, but I went to IIT Chicago. So you can call me a slum dog, a rocket scientist. I don't care, whatever you want to call me.
but
So
Dr. Ravi,
it's
when
important that you go after your passion.
I'm going to slightly interrupt, but because this is in line with our discussion which is going on right now, because I remember you telling me that when you joined NASA as an intern in the initial days, they assigned you to a department which was called as a vibration engineering department, which was most insignificant at that point of time. So your role was insignificant, the department was insignificant, but because of your contribution to vibrational engineering, department became the most important to such an extent that if a space shuttle had to take off, you had to sign off. Right. So I think this is really important because many times when people get small roles in life, they crib, they complain, and they say that, oh, this is God is unfair to me and all that. But I think it's not about all that. It's about how you make it significant in life. Right. So if you can tell something about that, I think it will really help the audience.
So, I think the people didn't understand that it was a new concept and higher thrust rockets. And this area was called vibroacoustics, meaning rocket noise is generated as the rocket takes off. And once the rocket noise is generated, it becomes a structural load on a structure. And when the structure and the load, acoustic load or sound load meets, and
Mhm.
you may have like cancellation, or you can have a resonance, which amplifies the signal. Just like when you go, you have a stop sign, and then suddenly wind comes and it starts fluttering like that.
Yeah.
Why? Because now it's in harmony. They both are
Mhm.
in harmony, the frequencies and the mode shapes, we call it, or the I call it the tango, the famous tango from Argentina. So you have a man, you have a woman, they get together and do beautiful moves. That's exactly what the sound does, or water does, or a hurricane does, or wind does.
Mm.
These are many areas, or rocket noise does. So this area was very important, and many people didn't understand it. And I was lucky to launch 100 rockets to understand how this phenomena
Oh.
works in the near field, meaning right on the launch pad. And that was a great thing to do because I was the first Indian born person to work on the launch pad. There was no Indian born person ever
Oh.
worked on NASA moon pads. These were two moon pads, 39A and B.
So you mean to say it is restricted? Nobody can get onto the launch pad.
No, no, no. You need to go like 7 levels of approvals and 7 levels
Okay.
of badging. Otherwise, you'll be shot at sight. If you try to sneak in,
Oh.
you'll be shot at sight. There's so much military. And then I have 5,000 alligators. They watch you too for their breakfast. So,
Wow.
what I'm
No.
trying to impress upon you is that, that kind of environment, we keep people 3 miles away at liftoff. So this problem was very, very.
So, Dr. Ravi, what is this about the title, the Astronaut Maker? I think this was conferred on you by our former Honorable President of India, Dr. Abdul Kalam, right? I think when he was touring NASA and you were his tour guide. And I remember you telling me your father was also there when he was talking to you about your job, your work in NASA. Tell us something about that. I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, he came to the US. He came to the US, and my father was one side, I was one side, and he said, "Oh, Dr. Ravi gave me a nice tour of NASA, and but one thing I'm jealous or envious of you." And my father almost had a heart attack, and then he said, "Yeah, I'm envious of your son because I'm a former president of India, missile man, rocket man of India, and everybody knows who I am, but now." Your son was the first one to launch humans to space, and God never let me do that. That was one
Ah,
dream I had. So that's why
awesome.
he's called Astronaut Maker, because not only he sent Kalpana Chawla, with the first Indian woman to space, but
Right.
also 700 people after that, in 100 rockets. So
Now,
I
all
think
that.
what I want to impress upon you is, remember that mirror we talked about.
Yeah.
So the next 22 years, 75 to 1997, in my first year in NASA in 1990, after first year, I launched a probe to the sun, Ulysses,
Oh,
Magellan to Venus, Galileo to Jupiter. We're getting ready for Cassini to Saturn, and we launched the Hubble. And by 1977, 97, I launched Kalpana Chawla, the first Indian woman. So see
wow. Yeah.
how your trajectory completely changes.
Changes.
My mom used to say, Pushpa Viman. I was launching that and bringing it back from space. And she said, that's my Pushpa, your Pushpa Viman.
Fantastic. I think the
And
proud moment
remember,
for your mother.
you have heard stories about Hanuman going and kissing sun, or
Yes.
taking apple and trying to grab the apple. Yeah, I'm not a Hanuman. I never wanted to be Hanuman. I can't be Hanuman. I would be scared to go near the moon. But we sent a probe, the Ulysses probe, in my first year to kiss the sun. You know,
Oh,
so, Ravi, in life, you can't say, oh, I didn't become Abdul Dr. Kalam or Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. I didn't become a billionaire. Okay, I didn't become a billionaire too. But what I'm trying to impress upon you and your audience is that my experience in NASA, no money can buy it, not even $1
absolutely.
billion or $10 billion. I didn't do anything for me. I built the International Space Station. I sent four Chandra telescope, Spitzer, Compton Gamma Ray, Hubble many times. So what I'm trying to impress upon you is, like, don't give up, guys. Don't jump off a cliff. Some IIT guy jumped off seventh floor. Somebody drove a car in the ocean. Somebody took
Yeah.
poison. So one of my own family member hanged herself by the
Yeah.
fan.
You
25 years
mentioned.
old. Like it burns my heart. Look, I had to stop this somehow.
I
If I can
agree.
stop one girl, okay, not because I'm the greatest person on earth, but it's my journey. Like, remember we talked about your peak, right?
Yeah. Your peak.
Okay, I climbed my peak in NASA. There's
Absolutely.
no Indian will ever do what I have done. Am I arrogant? No. There is another peak higher than that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Saving Indians. You
Well,
change your goal that, okay, I've climbed Mount Everest. Now I want to go to a higher
and
peak.
Dr. Ravi, while we are talking about your achievement, I cannot just miss this. That is a Silver Snoopy Award. Well, while I just googled it and I saw that it's a small pin, like the Snoopy dog. But what I realize is this is an award which an astronaut gives it to an engineer like you because he owes his life to you, right? Because the kind of precision you bring into your work is what makes him successful, right? So I think it's very interesting for people to know about this award. And since you received one, which is once in a lifetime, would you want to say something about it?
अरे भाई रवि भाई वो तो कुत्ता है ना Snoopy is a dog.
Dog.
Disney dog, Disney dog.
Disney dog.
Actually, there's a story behind it. Werner von Braun, who was the father, who was a German, he came to America and became the father of Apollo rocket. He helped NASA to go to the moon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he and Walt Disney, Walt Disney is the
Yeah, yeah.
founder of Disney Empire. He built Disney, right?
Right.
So they came up with this concept of Silver Snoopy. So why Silver Snoopy? Because they wanted to make it so damn special for NASA engineers who put their blood and sweat and things like that. Only 1% of NASA gets it
Yeah.
out of 1
Oh,
million people, even less than that. And only one a time in your life you get it, never twice. So this
wow.
pin is a silver pin, and it's a Snoopy dog, and it goes to space with, say, one of the astronauts. In this case, it was Pamela Melroy, who has been my mentor. Uh,
Wow.
and she goes up to space and brings it back to Earth. So suddenly there's a knock on the door, like 20 people coming out there, press and photographers and Pamela Melroy and every. They're saying, "Oh, cheer, three cheer." I mean, I knew what Silver Soupy was. That flown in space. It's an astronaut award, and once astronaut says that you're the best in the world in terms of engineering and safety, you know,
Wow.
you're like blessed person in NASA, that you're the best engineer. So yes, I'm not saying I'm the smartest engineer or the most knowledgeable engineer. No, it's all about problem solving. That's why I told you. I said, Ravi, they will hire you in NASA and say, Ravi, this is the job, get it done. So Ravi Nair
Yeah.
says, okay, I don't know anything about it, but I'll work on it. And that's the
Yeah.
attitude. We need your attitude. Then you
Attitude.
get the job done. You are a hero. Because for us, every moment is important. Every tiny speck of problems are important. So we have to solve those problems. And we give our blood and sweat to that.
I agree. I agree. I
I used to
appreciate.
sleep there 3 days in a row at NASA launch pads. Hold the shuttle to the launch pad. Can you imagine 9 million kilos going on your Bombay highway? Impossible, right?
Oh,
9
yeah.
million kilos.
Impossible.
I used to move to the launch pad. How do you move 9 million kilos? Okay. And then you put the whole thing takes 8 hours. You make sure everything is safe and check 3 million parts, not all three, but checks hundreds of thousands of systems and make sure everything works together.
Together.
One mistake, Ravi, it's going to blow up on the launch pad. And you know what happened to Challenger in
Yeah.
1986?
Yeah.
That
I
really
did.
burns me. So just to go back a little bit, first 22 years, my mirror was a real mirror. Next 22 years, I threw away that mirror and I changed the life's mirror because now it's dynamic. I could act, I could hold the bull by the horn, I
Right.
could run my marathon, dream my peak, and find my path and go towards it. Did I know ever go to NASA at all? I mean, that is an amazing story. That how can I come to NASA as a no, or America as a nobody? 1.2 billion people, 400
Right.
million people in America, and I get to work on the same launch pad when man went to moon. And I launched Kalpana Chawla, the first Indian woman. I didn't even know her
Amazing.
in India. I know her here. How is that possible? What is that? Is it coincidence? Is it serendipity? I can't even explain.
Now, Dr. Ravi, when people listen to the podcast till now, they're going to understand that the first 22 years was pretty tough, but the next 22 years was glorious and like a Bollywood movie. But I know that even when you were in NASA, achieving all that you were achieving, getting the Sulla Snoopy Award and all that, that was a day in your life when you just were laid off. They said you don't have a job from tomorrow, something like that. And worst, you stood up for something which you believed in principally and which costed you so much that it was such an overwhelming situation that you had to go through a bypass surgery. Now, the reason I want to share this story is because there are a lot of people who are at their peak, they reach a certain space and uh, so suddenly they face challenges and they start wondering what is happening to me? How can this happen to me? Right? So, I would, if you can share this part of the story where you actually had to put up a fight with your managers or your seniors because principally you were right. I think that would send across a very strong message to the audience. Yeah, because sometimes when you're right, you got to stand up for it.
So when I came to NASA, I was totally a foreigner, because I was not born American, and I had to become a citizen. Yes, a lot of things, the way how America worked, and I had to struggle to be part of the inner
Yeah,
circle.
circle.
Okay, and as I told you, I came as a nobody to NASA, and I had to prove myself to become a NASA buddy. So 88, 89, I started working and made my mark in the vibroacoustics. Then I got the Silver Snoopy in 96. And I met Pamela Melroy in 94. She became my sort of mentor, not real mentor, but, helping me
Yeah.
to push me to excellence. Then in 97, I launched Kalpana Chawla. the first Indian woman to space. As she went to space, I connected Indur Kumar Gujral to her from
Oh yeah,
Houston. So 1.2 billion people listen to that. So that's a great story. Then I hosted many conferences. I went around the world. 90, uh, 89, the wall fell. That's the same year I joined NASA. By
mm,
91, Russians were walking in my office. 93, I was in Russia. So uh, the guy from Mumbai or Mulund doesn't even know where Russia is, and he's walking in Moscow, right in
Moscow.
front of the Red Square and other things. So it's an amazing journey that you can do anything. And then finally, when the time came, by 2002, I was in Chile. I was at the top of my career. I hosted a conference called the International Congress on Sound and Vibration. 600 people came from 60 countries. I gave them a dinner party right under a Apollo Saturn V rocket. And then next week or so, I got laid off. And I'm like saying,
Oh,
why? I mean, I'm the top of my career. I'm so
wow.
famous that who is trying to do this or what is, I couldn't explain myself because
Wow.
it was not my performance, it was not my extracurricular activities. I was not doing anything wrong. So, sometimes there is some jealousy by somebody or some animosity
Yeah.
or something like that. And without going into too much detail, I don't want to point fingers at anybody, but in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
same token, I have to say that, look, it happened. And I was coming from one building to the other building. The building I was in, where all this happened, was like a shock to me. I almost had a heart attack, or teary eyes, and all that. I started coming, and that building is a very famous building because the Apollo Saturn parts were assembled there, and also
Okay.
the astronauts for shuttle, they were living there as their living quarters. So the very famous building called Operation and Checkout (ONC). So as I was coming, it's only about 5-minute walk from there to my big building, which is called the NASA headquarters. It's a huge building. So I talked to my wife. I said, look, I lost my job. I don't know what to do. I'm like really upset. And she said, don't worry, come back. And then as we were leaving, I said, okay, I'll talk to you later. Then she said, oh, maybe, you should go and talk to the NASA people. Then I went to my friend, and the rest is after half an hour of talking to my friend who was in Houston. I got 9 jobs. He said, take any one of these 9 jobs. I was a goodwill ambassador for NASA. I started working with ISRO in '97 with Dr. Kasturirangan to bring India and NASA under the ISS umbrella. So when you do good things come to you, and it helped me in the long run because I went through a quadruple bypass, and that happened in 2009 when we were launching Space Shuttle uh, uh, to repair the last Hubble repair mission. It's called STS-125. So at that time, we had lost Kalpana Chawla in 2003. So everybody had that wound or scar in their head.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was helping Pamela Melroy, who did the real investigation for Columbia accident.
Oh,
Out of
okay.
3 million parts, we got only 84,000 parts. Yeah, in the accident over Texas. So at that time, they were making a lot of mistakes. They didn't measure some sound and vibration on the launch pad, and they said it was impossible. So I was adamant. Finally, we had a big fight. I said, "No, I'm going to shut the launch."
Oh, okay.
And they said, "We'll fire you." And I said, "Okay, I've been fired many times, so you fire me." So guess what? I ended up in the hospital, but I got my friends from Houston, astronauts who are really, really big in safety and engineering,
Right, okay.
and they sided with me, and they said, "Dr. Ravi is telling."
So, in fact, this brings us to the common topic which we discuss, and the reason we started this podcast was when we vibrate at a low frequency in life, we keep attracting people and situations which are low on frequencies. Right? That is the reason I emphasize and tell people that it's very important to consciously vibrate on a high frequency. Right? And now, while we're talking about this, another thing came to my mind, and this was when we were addressing the engineers at L&T in Mumbai in, I think, in December 2023. We were jointly doing a session, and that session you mentioned about how big problems sometimes have very simple solutions, and you given classic example of NASA's spaceship and the woodpecker story. I mean, I just love the story so much. I mean, would you share the story with our audience if you don't mind?
I want to show you this. Um, this is this patient. This is worth about $5 billion in reality.
Wow.
And Kalpana Chawla went to space in this rocket. You know,
Fantastic.
this is my Pushpak Viman. That's what happened during Columbia accident. A small foam from here came and hit the leading edge, or this edge here is
Oh,
called the leading edge of the wing, and it made a pinhole. And that pinhole became bigger and bigger as the Columbia entered Earth, and that's when it happened.
oh,
It blew
just
up.
just a foam falling
So
off, huh?
foam
Which caused such a big
foam
accident.
falling off. It's
Oh,
just less than 10-pound foam coming and hitting. It's a
oh,
very simple foam. Yeah. So basically, what happened was we fixed that problem later on, and but we had lost Colombia. Now we were always looking to make sure that nothing happens on the orange tank. And
right.
one time, a mommy woodpecker and a daddy woodpecker wanted to have babies. So mommy woodpecker told the daddy woodpecker, "Go look for a tree, and we'll have your babies." The daddy woodpecker goes around the launch pad. There's no trees there because they may burn up in the launch. So he says, "Oh, orange tank. Hey, great. My wife will really like this. I'll go and make a nest." And it's a aluminum tank with a lot of what do you call
Foam.
foam, fine foam. So when he hits it on the foam, his beak doesn't hurt because the foam doesn't hurt his beak, but
Right.
a tree would hurt. So he made 300 holes, and that 300 holes really created a problem. And they came to me and said, "Dr. Ravi, can we launch this?" I said, "No way. You have to bring it back, fix it. 1 day delay of launching is $1 million. So we had a
Wow.
30-day delay. The problem was we still couldn't solve the problem. The
Problem.
bird kept on coming. So people said, "Oh, what do we do?" So NASA sends email, and we said, "Shoot the bird," but we have come under environmental control. We can't kill animals.
You
We can't
can't.
kill fish and nothing like that. The next thing somebody said, "Oh, get a predator and make the predator go after this woodpecker." But
Woodpecker.
and who is the predator for woodpecker? Owl. Owl is a predator. So
Right.
he said, "How am I going to catch an owl? It's not like a dog. You train the dog and go fetch. So I had a problem training this. First of all, catching this because environmental people will kill me. So the next thing is the NASA sent again emails, and finally this guy came up with the idea. He said, "We'll take balloons, birthday balloons,
Uh-huh.
and filled up with helium and put it every 10 meters because the launch pad tower is 300 meters and many, many areas. So we put 30 balloons with a big owl face on them. Even
Wow.
at the last launch, we had owl face balloons all over the Pacific. Said the simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. So in your life, all complex questions have a simple answer. Problem is you give up. But if you reframe the question, change the question,
Question.
modify the question, or even come up with multiple possibilities. We call it
Right.
possibilities thinking or reframing. Uh, up, India, when I was a kid in India, my teacher used to beat me up. "Ravi, one question, one answer, no more." In America, in NASA we say one question, 100 answers.
100
Why?
answers.
100 answers or whatever, and always plan A, plan B, plan C. So that one question one answer out of 100 questions that matches the question exactly,
Hmm.
100%. The rest, what do we do? They can answer few other questions which you never asked. Ravi Nair never asked me.
Right.
Okay, and that leads to innovation.
Absolutely.
A very interesting one because when the rocket noise generates, we put almost 1 million gallons of water.
Ah.
So when Ashutosh Gawarikar came for the Swadesh movie, I was escort for him as well as 40 people from Mumbai shooting the movie, scenes. And we put 1 million gallons of water. We don't do that every day because it's a lot of water. So,
Yeah.
so anyway, it was a nice story at that.
In regards to Dr. Ravi's brief mention about his association with Ashutosh Gowarikar and Shah Rukh Khan in regards to the movie Swadesh, which was shot in NASA, I want to share something with the audience. In December 2023, Dr. Ravi was coming to Mumbai. In fact, he was invited by Mahindra, and we were giving some lectures at L&T and Godrej. Uh, So while coming for the lecture, Ravi said, "You know what? Let's meet Ashutosh Gowarikar." And it never struck me that at that point of time that they are connected because of Swadesh, and because Swadesh I think was released 20-24 years back, right? So it never. I had seen that movie, but it never occurred to me there could be a connection. So I was wondering. I said, Dr. Ravi is requested to send an email. I said, of course, I had his email ID through a friend, but I didn't know if Dr. Ashutosh should honor him or give him that time for a meet or something. Eventually, I wrote an email to Ashutosh, and it was so nice of him, being a wonderful person he is. He remembered his association with Dr. Ravi and the kind of effort Ravi had put into in whatever way to help with the shooting. And he invited us, all of us, to his office. We had a nice meeting. Thanks to Dr. Ravi. I mean, good things always come back.
Yeah, it's a
Sometimes
great
people,
story.
yeah,
Thanks to you for your bringing it up because Ashutosh remembered me very fast. But what
yes,
is fascinating is, remember we talked about the first 22 and the next 22.
right,
Did I ever imagine as a kid sleeping on the terrace in Mumbai that I would be in America one day and I would work for NASA and I would meet Kalpana Chawla or launch her in space, or even meet Shah Rukh Khan or meet Dr. Abdul Kalam, who called me the astronaut maker of NASA. And, really, I think I want to write a book, and we are going to talk about it. There's a nice quote: fate never handed Genghis Khan his destiny, he created himself.
take credit
So,
himself.
Ravi, you want to become whatever you want. No, I'm not telling you what to become. It's your your peak. I
Choose your
can't
peak.
climb your peak.
So, Dr. Ravi, this just came to my mind because before this podcast, I was going through something and I saw an article on Sunita Williams stuck in space. So, I just wanted to know from you what exactly happening out there, because we see all sort of reports in the newspaper and on the net, but we really don't know what's really happening out there.
Yeah. Okay, very good question, Ravi. I'm glad you brought it up. I didn't even think about it because, I was, it's not that I don't want to talk about it. I want to talk about it. And, this is another failure turning point.
Yeah.
NASA worked with Boeing, and Boeing rocket had a lot of leaks and problems and stuff like that. Now, just like we talked earlier, it's a great story actually, because remember Apollo 13, right?
Right.
What was our plan A? Plan A was to land on the moon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it didn't happen. So
Mm.
Ravi Nair is going to sit and cry in, mission control? No.
No.
Ravi Nair is going to bring all his troops and say, hey guys, come on. I'm not going to let my Ravi Margasahayam die in space or Sunita Williams die in space, right?
Mm. Right.
So you are going to energize everybody and give them hope and saying, we're going to get this man back.
Right.
Okay. The urgency this time is not there because we have a big house, 5 bedroom house, and that is, I call my Taj Mahal, is going around the world every 90 minutes. So from Mumbai to Mumbai, 90 minutes, 16 times we go around the world, touching Mumbai maybe, and 16
Oh,
sunsets and sunrises. आप कितना देखते हैं? One. I see 16 of them in space. So,
wow.
this is moving at 28,000 kilometers per hour, and we built it by part by part by part. And Russians are supplying, Americans were supplying, and things like that. So it became a great palace in the world, and that's maybe my legacy, that I extended human living and working in space. That would be my
Mm.
legacy really, by building ISS, sending payloads, meaning experiments, and payloads can be humans, and human. Sunita Williams is a human payload, and human
Right.
payloads are more expensive than the regular payload. I can break a camera, but I can't break Sunita Williams. You know what I'm saying? So if NASA can go beyond the solar system, okay, and bring
Right.
people from moon 200,000 miles away. You know how far we are? 300 miles. It's a piece of cake. And now we are instituting plan B. So NASA is never out of plan B. So she's safe. Yeah, much safer. Actually, she's safer than Earth. Earth,
Ah,
we can get
okay.
a hit by an asteroid or a meteorite. She won't get hit because we can move the space station around. Okay.
Ah, okay.
So she's more safer there than Earth. So, like let's say me and you are buddies, brothers.
Right.
Would I let you die? No way,
No,
right?
no way. No way.
No way. I'll do anything. Let's say you drown in the pool or drown in the river. I'm going to do everything with swimming and get you out, right?
Right.
I'm not
Absolutely.
going to let you die. So don't worry about her. They are happy. They are doing their job. They are much better, safer than on Earth. They are drinking the best water on Earth because the Russians have a machine which converts everything into potable water, including urine
Wow.
and sweat, and you name it. That's the best
Oh.
water on Earth. Then so we'll get them next year. It's no big deal. Some people have stayed 900 days in space.
In fact, this reminds me about the Russian scientist. If I'm not wrong, he was stuck in the space station for almost maybe a year and more than a year or something like that. Because when he was up there, Russia got disintegrated down below on Earth. And then nobody was there to go and fetch him because nobody knew whose responsibility he was, right? So I think he had to extend his stay up in the space station for long, but I think finally came back. I don't know the exact name of the person and how what was the story behind it,
Sergei
but something like
Krikalev,
that. Sergey
he's
Krikalev.
one of the finest astronauts. I'm not saying he's better than Americans, but I'm saying he's as good as any astronaut.
Right.
I think Pamela Melroy is the best astronaut for me because she's my mentor. Nobody else is better than her. So, but what I'm saying is, this guy was a genius. He has gone on the Soyuz. He has gone on the Russian space station.
Okay.
He has gone on American space station. He has worked in Russia. He has worked in America. He is one of the greatest, coolest guys. His name is Sergei Krikalev, one of the brightest minds in the business. If I want to go to space, to ISS or space, I would want him as my companion along with Pamela, and then I'm
Okay.
safe.
Now, as you were saying this, something very interesting came to my mind, and that is a line which can sum up this entire podcast, and that is human beings are born twice and they die twice. Now, what I mean is, when I say they're born twice, the first time you're born, there is a time you get, it's a biological birth. You come on this planet, you come from your mother's womb, right? And the second time you're born is when you find your purpose. Like you found your peak, and that was your second birth, right? And when I say human beings die twice, what I mean is the first time you die is when you it's the physical death which you go through, right? And the second death is when the last person on this planet stops talking about you. Think about this. Like, if you the kind of work which you have done, Ravi, is something which people will talk about for the next, I don't know, 30, 40, 50, maybe 100 years.
Well, I think it's a very profound statement. Your purpose in life is very important. If you don't have purpose, you're not going to live
Right.
longer, I'll tell you. And the idea is to give back to the society or the world, not society, I would say the world,
Well,
what the world has given me in return. So I think that is the idea behind today's lecture. And I decided that, I have to talk about it. So people like the person who jumped off the cliff from
yeah.
seventh floor, I couldn't even get into IIT. Now I'm like so ashamed that I couldn't get a time to talk to that guy so I could brainwash him.
And saving.
Okay? Not to jump, not to jump.
Yeah,
Tell my
absolutely.
story. Tell my story. So that's the reason I tell story. I'm here not to impress, but to inspire.
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Ravi. It's a
Thank you,
great
Dr.
opportunity
Ravi.
for me to come
Yeah.
on this podcast and just speak my mind. Maybe
Yep.
I'm not a rich mind like you, but I'm a poor mind, but I have rich ideas.
Thank you,
Dr.
Dr.
Ravi.
Ravi. And for the audience, I'm going to leave Dr. Ravi's email ID at the end of this podcast, so you could write to him, communicate with him, and get whatever guidance we want to get from him, right? Because he travels a lot, so don't expect the immediate response from him. So be patient, okay?
Person.
No, let it come to you because you get thousands of emails.
Okay. So you can all write to me. I'll leave my email ID down below, and I'll try my best to forward those mails to Dr. Ravi so that he can respond to you. Okay?
I'll have to thank you and your audience. You asked some tough questions. I took many, many exams in my two masters and PhD and my high school. I never got this tough questions. I mean, I'll never have you as my teacher, man. I don't
Okay.
like tough questions. I like easy questions.
So thank you so much for your time for listening to this podcast, and thank you, Dr. Ravi, once again for this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful discourse and sharing secrets from your life, which will help a lot of people, right? So thank you once again, and we'll see you soon in Mumbai.
Thank you. Bye-bye.